Hey guys, this is an update on my old WPL C24. Like many of you guys, this is definitely one of my favorite RC cars, mainly because it comes in a kit. I love building RC cars, guys, and in my humble opinion, this kit is well worth every penny. And even though it's cheap, I would rate it among the better kits out there, guys, and I'll tell you why. Is it perfect? No. Is it bulletproof? No. Is it 100% awesome out of the box? No. But all you have to do to make it look really good is do a little bit of painting. I painted the interior, added some detail to the bed, did it blacked out the bottom, added some silver paint to a bunch of parts, did up the wheels. To me, the wheels was a real weak spot. That white plastic didn't look at all like real wheels. Just little touches, guys. Acrylic paint, super cheap, and you end up with a truck that, in my opinion, looks pretty good. I don't claim to be the greatest builder that ever lived, the greatest detail guy. My attention to detail is okay to a certain point, but I get tired of detailing long before many people do. So, it is what it is, guys. And to me, this truck looks pretty good. This body is absolutely decent, and especially considering how cheap it is. This truck with no electronics is 45 Canadian pesos. Around 35 US dollars. That's super cheap, guys. Not much money at all, and out of the box, it's not that bad. So the update today, guys, is because one of the things I went for when I bought this thing was the 2-speed gearbox. I'm a sucker for bells and whistles in an RC car, and a 2-speed gearbox was too good to pass up for 20 bucks. Now, this gearbox, this $20 version, it has a few problems, guys. Not the least of which is that it doesn't stay in top gear 100%. It's kind of prone to popping out of gear, and I farted around with this. I thought I had it fixed, and it was still giving me some trouble. And then the other day I went to fire this truck up, and a big cloud of smoke came out of the motor. And guys, RC stuff doesn't last forever, especially if you abuse it. The one thing I want to make clear, guys, is that I was pretty nice to this truck. I don't really like mud. I don't really play in the rain that much. This truck really did not get wet. It got damp, I would say. If that motor got any water in it, I'd be shocked. If it got any mud in it, I'd be super shocked. So, the typical point of failure if your motor goes up in smoke is some crud got in there, got on the brushes, some bridging happened, and poof, up in smoke it goes, right? Well, this thing, I can't imagine how that was the cause of the problems, foreign matter getting in there and it going up in smoke. So that was a bit of a disappointment, guys, because I thought, quite frankly, in this type of application, what are the odds that motor doesn't hold up reasonably well? A bit of a bummer. The servo actually works really good. It's it's decent for what you're spending, especially, but it holds up. It stacks up favorably against any servo of that size that I have. Works really good. The one problem with this transmission is that this bar that mounts the servo is a little bit soft. It actually, the servo engaging the gearbox actually can bend that shaft. So it's a bit of an issue. Now there's a second generation version of this gearbox out there, guys, that has an adjustable linkage, linkage actuator, whatever. Looks like it's probably easier to fiddle around with to get it to stay in gear and whatnot. So keep an eye out. If you see the version that looks like this with this arm just configured exactly the way you see it here, don't get this one. Get the new version. It's got a little collar and whatnot. By the sound of it, that works better. I'm debating ordering one of those, guys, but right now that particular one's hard to get for less than about 25 bucks, and that's not a terrible amount of money. But the big question, guys, is then instead of getting a 2-speed gearbox just by itself, do I order WPL? Oh, the new truck, the metal version, the little Toyota boxy truck with all the metal parts and whatnot, the good one. You know the one I'm talking about, guys, because everybody kind of wants that thing. It's 95 Canadian dollars with shipping, 100 bucks. That's a lot more, but not that much more. I mean, I was pricing out some of the parts, and basically, you know, you come up with 70 bucks worth of parts on a whim, and that's literally without factoring in any of the truck itself, the wheels, tires, body, chassis. You know, that's all just bits and pieces, and I've got enough bits and pieces that even if I take all the good stuff out of that, put it into this truck, I can still put that truck back together and have it be up and running. So I'm really tempted, guys. Anyways, I digress. The update's all about this little truck here. So yeah, my motor failed in the old 2-speed gearbox here. So now I'm actually running, as you saw in the montage, the stock gearbox and motor, which is not terrible, guys. It actually works pretty well. You know, it's when I first built this truck, I didn't actually put that in. I went straight to the 2-speed because I just heard it was terrible. And somewhere along the way, I had run it briefly, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this isn't nearly as bad as I thought, or I was led to believe. You know, it works fine, guys. My one knock is actually that basically that stock gearbox runs about the same speed as the 2-speed gearbox in high gear. So that's not ideal for crawling, but I mean, it has enough power to crawl up anything that you would crawl up in low gear. It just does it more quickly. So with a little bit less control, if you want kind of that scale crawling look, that's where you kind of miss out. The 2-speed gearbox with the extra low gear makes it look that much more realistic when it's crawling and climbing and stuff. So yeah, I mean, honestly, out of the box, this thing is pretty damn capable. You know, for me, the weak link was actually drive shafts. I broke a drive shaft on the original build, and I had to order these up, and these are fine. My one knock on these guys that I found out the hard way is that yeah, there we go. So you'll see that grub screw is actually sticking out of the drive shaft. The stock ones that come with them sit nice and flush, but they're made of some sort of barely metal, guys, like really, really shoddy, not good metal. And I was really worried I wasn't gonna be able to get one of them out because it seemed like it had stripped. And I was thinking back, trying to remember, like, did I accidentally strip that thing putting it in? Like, was it that bad? And no, it wasn't, guys. What happened was I have one particularly crappy Allen wrench that's a little bit big. Normally it's the one you never want to use because it's kind of too big for properly sized grub screws. And the hilarious part is that it fits those crappy ones really well. So once I figured out which Allen wrench I should be using, I got it out no problem. But I replaced those two that I had changed with proper ones that I had kicking around, and yeah, it's a good move, guys. You know, in my opinion, these trucks aren't a whole lot crappier than much more expensive RC cars. And this thing, as it sits, with these nice metal axles, metal drive shafts, and quality electronics, like I'm using a halfway decent Chinese radio, and you know, one of those little 30 amp ESCs you can buy for the small cars, and you know, all in everything, all the good stuff, it's a whopping 120 bucks. Now, that's not that much money, guys, and this thing works really nice now. Like these axles are, if anything, a little too smooth. You know, I aligned the pinions and everything nice, put some shims in because those axles weren't perfect out of the box. And now, as far as these axles go, guys, you know, they're nice. I like them. They come with bearings. You know, they're pretty decent, guys. Overall, they're not bad. Problems with them are some of the holes for the screws, and not the holes that you thread the screws in, but the countersunk holes where that the head of the screw sits into are actually just a hair too small. So a little bit of problem with attention to detail. The axles, like I said, I had to align the gears a little bit with spacers. And what I did, because I have a 3D printer, I printed out some shims out of plastic because I figured, it's a little truck, plastic, how bad can it be? You know, it should hold up okay. It's not that much load on it and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, that's worked just fine. But you know, it did need a little bit of tweaking, guys. The shock mounts, I needed to massage a little bit in a couple of spots to get them on there. I didn't buy the metal ones, but you know, it wasn't super difficult. But just the whole bolt in, you know, everything's fine. This is more along the lines of the kind of stuff that you get for real cars, where bolt in means, yeah, bolt in if you have all the tools and whatnot. You can massage them and make things fit when the car and the parts aren't 100% what they claim to be. And the funny thing is that for crawling, it's actually almost a little bit better with the axles not perfect, because they don't turn that easy, guys. Like, they're a little sticky, they're a little clunky, a little clicky. And when you're on a hill, it'll actually stop all by itself, because the gear train isn't that smooth. Well, the way this thing works now, it's really smooth. So you get yourself on a hill, and this thing just rolls on down all by itself, freewheeling if you're not on the throttle. So, somewhat comically, in some ways, it actually crawls better with things not being proper. But, you know, they're not going to last very long that way, so whatever, it is what it is. But overall, you know, these axles aren't bad. Like, they work okay. They improve your turning radius quite a bit. I don't know if you've ever driven one of these, you'll know that one of the problems out of the box, not problem necessarily, but the turning radius is really poor. Well, these axles improve it quite a bit, guys. Like, it really gets a lot better. And if anything, one of the problems is, you know, I talk a lot about problems here, guys, is that the CVDs are actually not capable of going quite to full extension, so you need to adjust that the steering end points a little bit so that it doesn't quite go all the way, because you get a little bit of clicking in the drivetrain if you're at full lock. It's not the end of the world, you know, nothing broke on mine or anything, but you know, it's a mild annoyance. I've been meaning to look in there and do a little bit of grinding to fix it, but I haven't gotten around to it. It's not that big of a problem. Anyways, that's the update, guys. So I broke a drive shaft. This motor went up in smoke, but you know, other than that, this truck's been pretty decent. And I mean, really, I have no complaints. Like, it's not that much money, and I like wrenching on stuff, so it doesn't really upset me too much. But you know, the nice thing about this thing, guys, is as far as kits go, you know, as long as all the parts are there, it's really fun to build. It's not that challenging if you're a noob. You know, it's one of those things. If you're building a really nice quality car, there's some pressure to do everything right and, you know, not make mistakes. Whereas with one of these guys, you know, if you make a boo-boo, the whole kit's $45 Canadian, $35 American. That's just not much money, guys. So, you know, you can only go so far wrong. It's a perfect learning platform. You know, everything that you need to know to build an RC car, you can pretty much learn with this thing. So I rate this car really highly, and down the road here, I've got some modifications for it that I'm going to be playing around with, and I'll put some plastic parts up on Thingiverse, and I'll let you know how any parts that I put in it work out. But yeah, so far, not too shabby. Overall, this, like I said, good truck, really fun kit. If you're into it, you know, great. If you're not, that's fine too. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found some useful information. Wrench to drive, or drive to wrench.